with our surveillance activities very early in the count, and we'll be talking to them as much as possible. I like to say that we've gotten a lot of help from the local fishermen to tell everybody, hey, this is a 5-minute window. We only need you to stay out for 5 minutes. So we keep our fingers crossed. So.
We will keep our fingers crossed. Do we have another question in the room? One question.
Hi, I'm Tracy Glock from NASA Social and Paramus Public Schools. What words of wisdom could you offer for students that are looking to pursue a career in aerospace or aeronautics?
Dream big.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll tell you, I'm sure everybody up here, you kind of look back on the careers we've had, and the
we'll be talking to them
space brings
as
you.
much as possible.
It's pretty amazing. You can take that next step.
I like to say that we've gotten a lot of
thing as well. But I can tell you, it is
the
so
local
fulfilling,
fishermen
and
to
you
tell
feel so
everybody, hey,
proud
this
of
is
what
a
you're
5-minute window. We only need you to
the
stay out for
International
5
Space
minutes.
Station is just a
we keep our
miraculous
fingers
deal
crossed.
with multiple nations coming together for peaceful
aeronautics.
purposes to, benefit
Dream
folks
big.
on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've been able to keep the thing operating continuously with humans on board for everybody out here years. So it took a lot of teamwork, it took a lot of
we'll be talking to them as much as possible.
It's pretty amazing. You can take that next step.
I like to say that we've gotten a lot of
but I can tell you,
from
it is
the local fishermen to tell everybody, hey, this is a 5-minute window. We only need you to stay out for 5 minutes.
Is just striving
we
for
keep our fingers
miraculous
crossed.
with multiple nations coming together for
Space or
peaceful
aeronautics.
purposes to, benefit
Dream
folks
big.
on Earth. And, we've been able to keep the thing operating continuously with humans on board for everybody out here.
Thank you for joining us on this Veterans Day. A reminder that NASA television coverage will begin at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Saturday for the launch. You can watch that on NASA television and on the agency's website, which is www.nasa.gov/live. Thank you.
I copy LC, FTSA, external power on and red, internal power off and red, FTSB, external power on and red, internal power off and red, FTSA, voltage 29.97, current 0.17, FTSB voltage 29.95, current 0.18.
Copy all ops 1, elect 1, report FTS external power status.
LC elect 1, FTS external power nominal.
Copy that, check 157. FTS LC step 158, verify FTS indicates safe, receiving check channel, report AGCs.
LC, FTS safe, receiving check channel. AGCs on FTRA 4.84 and on B 4.82.
Copy all FTS, check step 158. And prop lead LC, countdown 1.
And this is prop lead?
Yeah, I'll look for your confirmation when you have start of heated GN2 supply.
Copy LC.
Launch team, at this time, I want to poll for avionics and FTS internal power test. GSO?
GSOs go.
FSO?
FSOs go.
TD? And TD, LC, countdown 1.
Go ahead, sir.
Poll for avionics and FTS internal power test.
TDs go.
Ops 1?
Ops 1's go.
And elect 1.
Elect 1 is go.
Launch team is go for internal power test. Check step 159. Ops 2, start battery logging.
Hey, you're watching NASA TV, on the air and online every day, on this planet and beyond.
Prop lead.
Go ahead, prop lead.
Check 330, start of leading GM2, good one, verify.
I copy that, prop lead. Check 330 complete. Prop 2, LC, countdown 1. Prop 2, step 331, you better adjust PREG 52692135 KSIC.
And it worked.
Copy and work.
LC Ops 2, battery logging on.
Copy that, Ops 2, battery logging on. And Ops 2, verify nominal lithium-ion battery monitor com.
LC Ops 2 in work.
Good afternoon and welcome to
5269
Wallops Flight
adjusted
Facility
to
in Virginia.
1350
I'm Tabitha
PSIG.
Thompson with NASA's Office of Communications. This afternoon we're
Okay,
going to
copy
hear
that. Prop
about
2, we'll go ahead and check
several
step,
of the research
331
experiments headed up to the International Space Station on tomorrow's Cargo Resupply Services mission on Orbital ATK Cygnus. We have a lot of great information to share with you. We look forward to hearing your questions. I'm going to start with Camille Elaine with the International Space Station Program Science Office and Patrick O'Neill, who's with the Center for the Advancement of Science in Space.
Thank you, Tabitha. Hello, everybody. It's so great to have a packed house, and thank you for your interest in the science and research we're flying tomorrow. We are always excited. Tomorrow we'll be flying about 1,900 pounds of research supplies and science on board Orbital ATK CRS-8. And that research will be supporting the 300 ongoing or new investigations that we have currently going on during Expedition 53-54. All the experiments are supporting a multitude of scientific disciplines that the ISS has the capability to support, including the biology and biotechnology, physical science research, human research, technology demonstration, earth and space science, and education. We know the presence of the astronauts really inspires students, so we take that opportunity to engage them in their science, technology, engineering, and math. The reason we do this research is for several purposes: to advance our scientific knowledge through scientific discovery. We also want to enable future space exploration. We are also creating this commercial marketplace in low Earth orbit, and then we're doing research that has a benefit to improving the quality of our lives here on Earth. We sponsor many different types of research. NASA sponsors research to support our science missions, to support our space technology missions, to support our human research. We also have international partners. It's an international space station. So we do research that is in support of our international partner national goals. And then we do research that supports the ISS US National Laboratory, which is managed by the Center for the Advancement of Science in Space. And now I'll hand it over to Patrick, who represents CASIS, and he'll tell you a little bit more about the research being done in the US National Lab. Patrick.
Copy that, Elect 1.
Thank you very much, Camille. Well, hey, once again, as Camille said, it's awesome to see so many people out here. And my name is Patrick O'Neill. I'm with the Center for the Advancement of Science in Space. Some of you might have been hearing about this organization called CASIS, or the U.S. National Lab. Prior to your being here, how many people knew that the ISS actually was a national laboratory? Wow. Okay. Well, that's. It seems every single launch we're getting more and more people that are raising their hands, which means that we're sending a lot of great research to the space station. That's a great problem to have. So a little background, though, for those that might not be familiar with the ISS National Lab concept. In 2005, Congress declared the U.S. portion of National Laboratory. The thought process was to try to open up research channels to non-NASA initiatives, specifically to use the space station to benefit life on Earth. And so CASIS became that entity that was tasked with managing the National Laboratory in 2011. And I have to say that we are really starting to enter the golden years of the International Space Station from a research perspective. We're constantly evolving the station for the needs of the research community. You're going to be hearing from some of the individuals who are responsible for commercial facilities on the station today that are enabling more and more access for researchers to be able to leverage this incredible platform to benefit life on Earth. On this particular launch, we really do have kind of a myriad of investigations that are going up, representing life sciences, Earth observation, cube satellite technology, and there's going to be an abundance of student payloads that are going up on this investigation. So it's truly an exciting time to be involved in the ISS research, and you know, I think that we're going to hear a heck of a lot more about some of the payloads that are going to be going up today. I think at this point, Camille and I were happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
LC ops doing work.
Hold on just one second. So you mentioned there are 300 or so experiments ongoing new. Who decides on which experiments get involved in this program?
So I talked a little bit about that earlier in the news conference. So we have different sponsors that sponsor their particular research, right? So from a NASA perspective, the research we do to enable future space exploration is sponsored through several missions: the science mission, the space technology mission, the human research program. Then we have the U.S. National Lab portfolio, and they decide what science is important to them that has a benefit to our lives here on Earth. And so that's a whole other portfolio that they decide. And then the international partners, they decide what is important to them that support their national goals. So those sponsors actually decide what type of research we'll do on the space station.
I have
I understand there's a CubeSat launcher on the ISS, but also the Cygnus that's going up has a certain capacity for CubeSats. So I guess we're seeing that from here. What's the life of a CubeSat after it is orbited, and how long do they take to deorbit, and what's the capacity of the Cygnus?
Oh my gosh, you know what? Hold that question for the guy. We have the CubeSat experts here, the PIs who are going to fly their CubeSat, and it actually just depends. So they'll be able to answer that question.
TD, you dropped off there?
TD's go.
Ops 1.
Ops 1 go.
Hi, my name's Edward Young from Harry S. Truman High School. You mentioned cases. That's for, I believe, the funding for the student profile or the student programs. I guess that's university students. And if so, is that going to be opening doors for potential high school programs as well?
So I would actually say the vast majority of the STEM payloads that go up that are part of the ISS National Lab Manifest represent high school students and middle school, basically 6 to 12. So that's really kind of where we focus an awful lot of our efforts. And as an educator, I'm sure that you know that when you're in the middle school ages, that's typically where you tend to see the students kind of deter from math and science. And so if anything, we're really trying to show that the space station is something that you could take advantage of from a student research perspective. There's a variety of programs that we are involved with or that we sponsor. You're going to hear actually a little bit about some of them today. But happy to go and talk with you further about some other ways that you can be involved from a STEM education standpoint.
Current, I'm not able to read from my console. That has to come from Elect 1. FTSB battery voltage 32.5.
Thank you both very much.
And I copy that, Ops 1. Elect 1, can I get a current reading for FTS Alpha and Bravo?
Up next, we have Henry Martin to answer those burning questions about deploying CubeSats. Henry Martin with NanoRacks and Cassie Wong, who is with the Cargo Resupply Systems. She's an engineer with Orbital ATK.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Cassie Wong with Orbital ATK. I'm a systems engineer on the CRS program. Cygnus' primary mission is to deliver cargo to the International Space Station and to transport trash on the way back in vehicle reentry. So we're very excited for OA-8 coming up. The Cygnus service module consists of the pressurized cargo module and the service module. You can see in the picture behind me, the lower portion is the service module and the upper portion is the cargo module. The service module consists of all the subsystems that we need to fly the missions, such as the avionics, the communications equipment, the guidance, navigation, and control equipment, the propulsion, and all the other subsystems. The pressurized cargo module holds over 900 cubic feet of volume for the cargo. Somebody at work once told me that that holds 400,000 golf balls. I don't know. I don't know if that provides much of a reference, but it does hold a lot of cargo. OA-8 is delivering over 7,400 pounds of cargo to the station. But Cygnus has really evolved into much more than just a transport and delivery service. It's now become a valuable secondary science platform for all these payloads that you're going to hear today. So we're very excited about that at Orbital ATK. On the past 3 missions, we hosted the Sapphire experiment, and that studied flame propagation in microgravity environment, and that occurred after we departed the station. The experiment began. So that was an exciting opportunity for us. OA-8 is also paving the way for a new capability for Cygnus, and it's acting as an ISS lab extension. So this will mean it's an active laboratory for the crew to use while on station. This doesn't seem like too much of a big deal, but if you think about it, if you bring stuff continually into your house over and over, it's going to get quite full if you're not bringing things out. We bring a lot of cargo, we bring a lot of experiments to the space station, and not as much comes out. So they are quite tight for space for running labs and experiments up there. So being able to unpack Cygnus and then bring in the Tango Lab facility and use it as an active lab is really quite a new capability for the station and quite an exciting thing for Cygnus. We're really excited about that opportunity. We are thrilled at Orbital ATK to promote increasing our knowledge and capabilities in space through the use of Cygnus. We are in a future mission going to be able to support live rodents on our mission, so we can bring them up to the space station for additional space research. We also have some concepts that go beyond the International Space Station. There's some concepts out there of using Cygnus as a deep space habitat by connecting multiple Cygnuses together and allowing for it to be used as a habitat in space. One of our key partners, though, on secondary missions is NanoRacks. And NanoRacks has flown with us for the last 3 missions, and they are flying again for OA-8. And we're really excited. It's record-breaking in this case that we have a full complement of satellites on board NanoRacks. So we have 14 CubeSats going to deploy on OA-8. So here to talk a little bit more about that is Henry from NanoRacks.
Why, thank you, Cassie. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Henry Martin. I'm from NanoRacks. I'm going to talk all about the stuff we have on board the OA-8 launch, which includes stuff on the outside of the Cygnus as well as the inside. I have some slides, so can we throw those
And LC warm helium charging reinitiated.
Copy that properly. Then MES.
Okay, anyway, I can start talking. So like I said, we have stuff on the inside and the outside. That's pretty cool. I'm going to focus on the outside stuff first, and then we'll talk a little bit on the inside. And again, I'm going to focus more on our hardware, which my job is to get the satellites that our payload developers have made into orbit. So if we look here, here's a couple of satellites. There's a model of Isara, that's it, that's ChefSat. So these satellites are being integrated in our clean room in Houston to the external satellite deployer, which goes on the service module of the Cygnus. So that's on the outside. So go to the next slide here. Like Cassie said, we have 14 total. Here it is again. You can go to the next slide.
LC, go ahead.
Yeah, you go for step 1.9.
So once they're all done, we've done 14 total. It's long hours, long days. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of paperwork, but that's okay. Once we're all done, that's the last time anybody ever is going to touch those satellites. So there are no more hands-on people. And so what we'll do is we'll put it in a box, and then we ship it from Houston to here. And everybody's happy about it. So once it's here, it's another game time. So next slide, please. And this is a video, so this is kind of cool. This is a time-lapse video of how we actually install this thing on the side of the service module of the Cygnus. So you see that panel with the white square around it? They wrap the bag up. That's where the box, which is kind of on the bottom left, is going. And so what we do, it's really great to work with Orbital on this. They're so good at it. It's hard work. They have a fantastic team. And what happens here is essentially we take the box, we mount it on the outside, cover it in a blanket so it stays nice and warm and everybody's happy. And that's it. That's also the last time that anybody will ever touch it. So once it's there, keep in mind, it never goes through the inside of the ISS. So it just hangs out with the Cygnus until once it's done, the Cygnus will unload all of its cargo. They'll load it full of the trash and waste that is made on orbit. And instead of it going to burn up immediately, the Cygnus actually travels to a higher orbit. So the ISS goes around 400 kilometers, and what the Cygnus does is it uses its extra prop to go to 500. And so if your question earlier about lifetime, that's cool. Higher orbit equals higher lifetime. Low Earth orbit actually pulls in things very slowly, so eventually they all burn up and it cleans itself. But if you go to 500 kilometers, we estimate you get like 3 to 5 years of lifetime. If you go directly from the ISS, it's like 9 months to a year. So with that extra time, you can get more science, get more value. Some of our customers are doing straight research. Some of our customers use the information they get and they sell it to various people for uses. So that's really great about the Cygnus. Like I said, this is the 4th time we've done this. It's totally full, as Cassie said before. We were not able to fill it, but now we are currently displaying the full capability of the system. So if you go to the next slide, so it's done, it leaves. You can see the little white box below, well, I guess above the green light. That's our thing. I think this is OA-4 or OA-6 or OA-5. Go to the next slide, please.
Ready to select all ODM safe.
And so there they are. The crew's happy. They get to watch the leave. You can see the white box. Pretty cool. Next slide, please.
LC, okay,
all right.
proceed.
So this is a video of how this actually works.
Okay.
So right now it's at 500 kilometers. You can see the Earth orbiting in the back there. It's pretty neat. Give it a little second. And you can see there's 3 doors. Each one of those doors has a bunch of satellites in one of the silos behind it, and once Orbital issues the commands, hopefully it'll go here in a second, the door will open, and out come the CubeSats, just like that. So this time we'll have 14 total, so we'll do it in sort of a phased approach. We'll wait a few hours, deploy the rest, wait a few hours, deploy the rest, and that's it for the external stuff. Our customers include universities, research centers, whom you will hear from soon, the NRO Office of Space Launch, as well as a commercial customer who we continue to contribute to their constellation on orbit, the lemurs at Aspire Global out of Glasgow. Next slide. I think that's it. So that's it for me. We also have some stuff on the inside, which we'll talk about here. One of them is a biological satellite, which is super cool. It's the first one for us. It's a lot of many firsts for NanoX here. And with that, I think I can turn this over.
Thank you both. Don't leave though. If you have a question, please raise your hand and wait for the microphone to reach you. If you're following along on NASA's social channels, just use the hashtag #AskNASA. I think we have one right now.
So yeah, this question came in through hashtag #AskNASA, and it's about for Orbital, and it's the question's from at Skyfire 747. Is there a specific order of loading supplies onto the rocket?
Very good question. Yes, there is. So certainly things that are closer to the door are more accessible to the astronauts. And so NASA gives us a priority for what is installed and based on what they are going to take out. So certainly the crew will start in the front and then they go towards the back. So that is given to us by NASA with install this in a certain order, and we follow that accordingly. There's also what's considered late load cargo, so things that are time critical, those are installed later in our flow.
Pointed to this, but you didn't really tell us what it is.
So this is a satellite deployer that we use on the inside of the ISS. So a little different from the outside. This goes on an airlock slide table in the Japanese airlock module. What it is we take these satellites, actually, one like this, one like this, and on the ground, we put them, as we call it, in the can. We put it in here, and then what we do is they load it on their Cygnus. It goes up, the crew pulls it out. They'll put it on a slide table. Actually, there will be 8 of these, and the Japanese robotic arm will come. It'll grab it, it'll kind of point it away, and someone clicks a button,
indicator no longer illuminated,
and out go the CubeSats. So we are launching one of these like this. We're launching another one which houses ECAMSat, which we'll hear from soon, and that will join a current complement of 3 others on orbit, one from Goddard, one from JPL, and one from Penn State University, and they will perform their airlock operations hopefully a little bit later this month, and that will be our 13th mission. So we should get close to 200 CubeSats, and then once we deploy from the Cygnus, we'll have hit over 200.
Before we came up here earlier, that this is actually one that has flown. So this is a
That's true. We reuse all of this stuff if we can. I wish we could use the Cygnus, but unfortunately it burns up. Can't get it. But this we reuse if we can. They work every time.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions in the room?
And
I have a quick question. My name is Brian Meyer. I'm from the Orbital Social.
We've
are the
actually
CubeSats
completed
ejected
all of our
mechanically
steps
or
through step 211.
method?
So the SNA arm
It's just a spring, actually. So what happens is the whole system is loaded before against the doors, as we saw. And when the doors open, that spring works every time, just pushes them right out. But propulsion is a good thing you mentioned, because 2 of the satellites we're flying, which you'll hear, actually have a small water prop system. I won't steal your thunder. And that one is neat because not only is it one of the first times we're flying prop to the station, but this will actually go above the ISS, which is a first for everybody, us, including the whole program.
We have time for one more question. Do we have one in the room?
Redeploying the red team back down to the
Anything from
pad
Ask NASA?
to go ahead and do another press up on the hydraulic pressures for the tail system. But because we ran steps out of order, we're now going to go ahead and reform
Our next speaker is Elwood Agassiz, who is Deputy Program Manager of the Small Spacecraft Technology Program.
Power supplies.
Hello, everyone.
Our ground ODM and our
Really happy to be here.
ODM,
Space Technology Mission
in the
Director
proper configuration. So
through the Small Spacecraft Technology Program. We'll be flying 3 spacecraft on this particular mission, and we're both going to be demonstrating some advanced communication systems. You'll see some videos that will come up shortly that will actually show you what the projected flight sequence will look like for both of them. These are models of the 2 spacecraft we have here. The first one is ISARA, the Integrated Solar Array Reflector Array Communication Satellite. And this other one, there will be 2 of these, is called OCSD, Optical Communications and Sensor Demonstration Satellite. And this one, the optical communications satellite will demonstrate the first time in the small sat platform laser communications. They're going to be using some technology that's very similar to some of the terrestrial technology. It'll have a capability to demonstrate communication speeds through optical communications up to about 200 megabits per second, which is really an advancement for small satellites. And then the ISARA will use Ka band communications, again, to demonstrate high bandwidth communication speeds. Is that video? Okay. I think the first one should be ISARA. And it is. And so this is the ISARA after it's been ejected from the canister, we call it.
Yeah, you're go for step 336 direct.
And the unique thing about this is that the solar array, which is on one side, and then the antenna is on the other side. So this is the solar array side that you see.
Copy and work.
That will deploy after the spacecraft is stabilized. And the particular orbit, it'll pass over a ground station that's located near JPL in Southern California. And the system will start transmitting their radio transmission over the ground station there. And with that, we have about 5 months or so of lifetime. We'll be doing several passes to look at downloading basically some data at this high bandwidth speed. And this is the ground station over JPL. Next one. And the next video you're going to see will be OCSD. And here it is being ejected now.
house.
No, there's a ground station over in Mount Wilson in Southern California. So here's the maneuvering portion that I spoke of. So they'll get to a position roughly about 200 meters from each other. And this is done autonomously. This is not done from the ground, which is another important feature. And so we're hoping with these demonstrations to infuse these into future NASA missions. And so these are capabilities that will not only enhance the capabilities of the CubeSat platform in and of itself, but it'll also be used, it can be used in a cross-cutting fashion across other science missions that they hope to work on and for future NASA missions. Hey, that's it.
Thank you, Elwood.
Thank you.
If you have a question in the room, please raise your hand and wait for the microphone to get to you. And if you're following along on NASA's social channels, make sure that you use the hashtag AskNASA.
Yes, sir. So the 9,000-foot danger area has been swept and the roadblocks have been set.
So while the satellites are in orbit, what's the duration that they'll be in contact with the ground sats?
Yeah, we
How long over
performing
each
those
pass
tests,
will they have direct contact with the ground stations?
They'll have something on the order of like maybe about 4 to about 10 minutes per pass. It all depends upon the ground speed and the tracking. They'll be doing a little bit of slewing as well over the ground stations to maximize the contact period.
Current EPV power supplies initialized.
Next question we'll take is from Ask NASA.
And LC prop lead on countdown.
So now this question is, how many Mbps do current small satellites transmit via RF radio frequency?
So that's a good question. We're typically using UHF and lower transmission speeds, 9.6 kilobits. So if you can imagine 200 with this, now several orders of magnitude, and we're in
Roger that, Ops 1, and your go-to-arm ground ODM?
Gigahertz range for this, so it's very high speed.
Ground ODM, arm
right,
command.
so at least an order of magnitude in the Ka band. Was the question over there?
And Ops 1, verify GSM, EPV, ODM, arm?
Verified.
Hello. We were up at NASA Goddard last week, learned about another NASA mission for laser communication between a ground station, the satellites, and the International Space Station. Is this laser communication in any way related to that one, or is this a completely separate, independent investigation?
This is an independent. This was, we funded this several years ago. The thing that was interesting about this particular system is they use a combination of terrestrial-based systems as well as more space-based applications, but they've been able to get this in a really compact format. The laser head in and of itself is just very small, so this is a 1.5U CubeSat. And they looked at this from the perspective of power and mass.
I just want to confirm that we now have our vehicle configuration as expected for where we're
do we have
at
anything
in the
from
countdown
Ask
at this time.
LC Elect 1, I confirm that.
Thank you.
Okay, copy all.
Our next speaker is Steven Spramo, and he is the project manager for ECAMSat, also from Ames Research Center.
Hello, it's great to be here at Wallops today. Happy Veterans Day. I know we have a few veterans around I've spoken to, so I'd like to talk about ECAMSat today. It stands for E-coli Antimicrobial Satellite, and it's sponsored by the Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate. Specifically, the division is Space Life and Physical Sciences at NASA headquarters that sponsored this today. It is our goal to enable science, enable discovery for new scientific methods. So with that said, we're studying antibiotic resistance for a number of reasons. One is that astronauts have some immune suppression issues in space, and there's specifically a type of E. coli that we're flying today that will have a mutant and a wild type. We have two different genes in there, and basically the genes are, one is has the ability to show a stress response, and another one, the other mutant has a deleted gene. So the knockdown effect from the antibiotic is different in both types, and we'll compare from basically up in space and microgravity versus the 1G environment on Earth. So we'll have a parallel experiment on the ground. So the satellite itself, the experiment was designed by Dr. A.C. Mateen at Stanford University. I'd like to put up some slides, if we have those.
And GCELC, countdown 1.
So here's the actual spacecraft. The spacecraft itself is basically the size of 2 loaves of bread, and it's 23 pounds or 10.5 kilograms. So it has 2 communication systems on it. One is a UHF radio, which will be communicating with the ham radio community around the world, and we'll have a system on it to do outreach. So ham radio operators can help us find the spacecraft in the first 4 days of launch, and that's a great program. Santa Clara University will also be communicating with it for us and doing mission operations.
Yeah, this is probably, I can verify
so
20 is open.
Within this, one-third of the spacecraft houses a laboratory. And within that laboratory, we have a microfluidics card. So I'd like to show the next slide.
On my mark. 3, 2,
so this is the experiment canister. It's a 1-atmosphere canister. And basically has electronics that will do detection, measurement of different phases of the experiment. There'll be 3 48-hour phases of the experiment. And we'll be feeding them, administering antibiotic, and then watching a stress response with a indicator that measures enzyme activity or metabolic change as enzymes are expressing with the 2 different stress responses and after the antibiotic is administered. Next slide, please.
LC, Core 1.
So within the canister, we have a number of items that it looks like a spaghetti of, it looks like a mess here, but we compact that all down, and there's a very precise packing order. So within that, we have a number of custom blood bags that we've developed, and that houses the actual liquid we'll send through the system. Next slide.
LC, MES1, countdown 1. MES is go for switch check.
So this is after the experiment has actually been activated and gone through a number of steps. There's 20 steps in this experiment, and it'll last about 150 hours.
Go ahead and check 337.
If we could pan back to the
LC,
desk
338,
here.
activate engine pressure switch check.
Can the camera come back to me for a moment? Thank you. So we have this canister, and this is roughly the size of the laboratory that we'll be flying. It connects up with the rest of the spacecraft, and the whole system operates off 3 to 10 watts of power. Compared to your incandescent light bulb, this is pretty amazing. It also maintains human body temperature to 37 degrees centigrade, plus or minus 1 degree C, even with extreme environmental space. So hundreds of degrees swing outside the spacecraft on the surface temperatures, and we are able to maintain this at human body temperature still. Within that, we have pumps and valves, very precise circulation pumps and metering pumps, where we actually mix the antibiotic in the system, and we administer the doses of high, medium, low, and control, which would be no antibiotic.
1, engine pressure switch check nominal.
Copy that. Check 3.
This is an example of a microfluidics card, and I know it's hard to see, but it has 48 well plates, and we have about 48 little experiment wells that are the size of an eraser head here. And it contains different E. coli experiments, which we have photodetectors and LEDs that shine through. And basically, the channels in here are so small that even the smallest ant would not be able to crawl through it. So,
yeah, start logging on the 4 national.
As we go on, I'll just show you a little bit of a build-up of what we do. So we have heaters that we add, and this keeps a very even distribution of heat around the system, and on. We start building up more of the components, and then you get to the valving system, and all of this works with the circuit board with an automated program. The system is autonomous, and it will run every step of this experiment. We will basically have Santa Clara University to intervene if there's any kind of issue, but mostly their job is to download data, which is about a megabyte file, which is very similar to a sound bite or a song that you download off the internet, so in scale. I have a video to show today as well.
8032 closed and 5464 closed.
Copy
that. Prop 2 checked 262.
So this is us loading the actual experiment that will go up on this flight on tomorrow. And the build up of the satellite, basically like this container has been loaded in at this point. There's solar panels we add, which produces the power for the mission, and we have battery systems that help store that power. We have a radio on the end there that's a patch antenna, and we communicate down to Santa Clara University. This is on October 25th, actually loading into the NanoRacks deployer that will be used on this mission.
Get a report for readiness
After that, it'll be taken up to the space station in the Cygnus module and unloaded by the astronauts. They will put it through the GEM airlock, and after this, they'll deploy it.
Set engine pressure sensors to cow mode.
There's an animation of it deploying.
Standing by 5 seconds.
So ECAMSat will deploy, and then it'll have 4-day stabilization phase.
Sensors to flight.
And after those 4 days, microgravity will be pristine enough for us to run our experiment. It could happen earlier, but we have hysteresis rods and permanent magnets to help with this. This is a teardown of the laboratory as well, and this is a microfluidics card as it would sit. We'll go through each one of these wells and ping each well and store the data. Here's the different bags that we'll carry, and it's nutrient, Alamar glue, a buffer solution.
Okay, copy that. Check 269
and then the bacteria themselves will administer the antibiotic, and this is the most important phase here, so it's the stress response. And
coming up on our first
antibiotic and their stress response in general, the E. coli stress response to the antibiotic is something we're specifically watching. E. coli are capable of kind of becoming survival, upping their survival capability when they're stressed. So we're watching that mechanism genetically. There's a gene called RPOS, and specifically the immunologist at Stanford, he wants to target looking at this particular gene, and if we find that it does something different in space, we might find out that we would want to develop the countermeasure for that, and understanding how to knock down an infection. This particular infection is called cystitis. It's common to terrestrial cases. It's a urinary tract infection. So for that matter, what we learn in space may allow us to key in on a specific pathway to help design more effective antibiotics and eliminate the antibiotic resistance effect.
Copy that.
With that said, I'll stop here and ask for questions.
Great, thank you. Again, if you have a question in the room, please raise your hand, wait for the microphone, and if you're following along on NASA's social media channels, please use the hashtag AskNASA.
Copy that. We have nominal telemetry.
Copy that. And hey, Electron, when I have you, can I get step 271?
Hi, my name's Christina, and I'm from NASA Social. I had a question. You talked about doing the antibody research, but have you done anything with aptamers?
Copy that.
I'm sorry.
Have you been doing any research with aptamers binding to the E. coli?
Can I get confirmation?
No, I'm an engineer, so that would be better answered by the PI, the principal investigator. So he's at Stanford, and I can direct you to him for that question. So, any other questions?
Are you determining the dosage amount of antibiotics and the effect on the E. coli?
So the question is, are we determining the dosage amount and the effectiveness? Or yeah, so we have run this experiment 9 times on the ground, and we look at the knockdown effect on the E. coli and its response, its stress response, and so we look at enzyme activity with this dye, and If you notice in one of those photos, there's kind of a pink color to the card afterward, and so we've specifically dialed in it's micrograms of antibiotic for the size of the volume, and yes, it's very tuned, and we've even our pumping capability and mixing and everything has all been tested on the ground extensively to determine how much. Roughly a teaspoon of volume or liquid is pumped through the card in each step or phase when we put it through.
93. I believe.
Ops 1 LC, press local launch enable
Jeff,
button
Space
at
News. What's the benefit of doing this on a CubeSat versus a lab rack inside the station? What can you do in the CubeSat you can't do in the station?
Oh, that's a great question. I get asked this a lot. So for that matter, we could do this on the space station. And so this canister, we did talk about putting it in. There very well may be a follow-on mission. I don't know. That would include this canister in the space station. But there's advantages for the future. When we go to past low Earth orbit in the radiation environment of space, you want to take the lowest mass system as possible. And CubeSats will lend themselves to the future. You would want to deploy a CubeSat potentially with looking at the radiation effects in the future. So basically baseline how we do this in low Earth orbit and then move forward to send maybe the same experiment or with some add-ons with a low mass CubeSat to answer the questions with radiation added. So there's a follow-on mission at NASA Ames called BioSentinel. It's not exactly like this, but it uses a lot of things we learned here. There's other things with life detection in the future we're talking about. Lessons learned with these microfluidic systems may actually be key to going to Enceladus in the future to do life detection and examples like that. So I'm not saying it's the exact copy, but what we're learning as researchers and the creative minds that design this system very well may have the answer for doing life detection in other moons in the solar system or other planetary bodies.
If you would contact Red
We'll have time for two more questions. I believe we had one here in the front or in the middle of the room, and we'll come back to an Ask NASA question.
Yeah, LC, that communication has already been provided. They are en route to V50.
Okay, very good, GC. And so you can confirm we will have no personnel at Zebra 65 at this point?
Hey, my name's Daniel.
Okay, roger that.
I was just curious if you guys are looking at gene transfer, like through transduction or transformation, and if you feel like those processes would be any different in microgravity.
Again, this is better answered by the PI, but we're specifically targeting this one gene. So imagine we've removed all the other variables here. The human body's not involved here. So what we learn from this mechanism without the immune system involved, we look at the genetic response. So in science, sometimes you want to remove as many other variables that may be confusing the answers. So this does that for that. But specifically, what you're talking about probably would be a whole different experiment design. So sorry, I don't have a good exact answer.
345, switch link 87 to open loop.
But Dr. Mitten at Stanford would be able to answer that.
Good work.
This question came in through Ask NASA. It's by @FossilLocator. What is the composition of the ECAM SAT's casing? It looks like solid gold.
Oh. So I can guarantee you, yes, it is very flashy and it looks like gold. Probably wouldn't be able to pick it up like this if it was gold. It is aluminum, and we plate it with gold for thermal properties. So one of the many things that we have to do to the spacecraft is observe absorptance and emissivity characteristics on the spacecraft. So for this challenge, and we do thermal models of up to 640,000 calculations on this particular mission. Every minute of the mission's model, this surface was picked. So if you look at the actual original, the first image I showed of the spacecraft, you'll see a copperish look instead of gold, and that's because it is copperish. And through different phases and doing things, I can get into all the details of how we do this, but long story short is we adjust thermal properties, and that's the reason it is that color.
TMLC, countdown 1.
Thank you, Stefan.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, LC, we do not have knowledge.
Next up, We have Michelle Lucas, who is the founder and president at Higher Orbits, and, along with Abigail Yonker, a student who participates in Higher Orbits.
And Core 2
well, good afternoon. We are so excited to be here. As mentioned, my name is Michelle Lucas. I'm with Higher Orbits. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that uses space as a launch pad to get students more interested in STEM while building leadership, teamwork, and communication skills. I'm also the program director for our Go for Launch program. It's a 2 or 3 day event where students get to work with an astronaut for the entire event, and they compete to have their experiment idea flown in space. And we have some slides that'll pop up here with some photos from one of our events. The experiment we're going to talk to you today about is because of a great sponsorship of Orbital ATK. They sponsored one of our divisions. And what happens in a division is there are multiple events. We pick a winner from each event. The overall division winner has their experiment flown to space. And that is the Saguaro Snakes experiment for this. The team actually has 5 team members. I have Abby here with me who's going to speak next. And if I could get Nicholas Japson to stand up. He is also one of the team members, and you might see some of the others around this week. So they are around for questions. They are in these photos. We work with Space Tango to get the experiment built and manifested. And for those of you who were asking questions about funding and programs like this is somewhat of a standard summer camp where Johnny or Susie can choose to attend. We do run these all across the country, but we are very beholden to the support of others who are really big believers in STEM, such as Orbital ATK for their sponsorship and Space Tango for their work with us. But you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear about the science. And as such, I am really honored to get to turn this over to Miss Abby Yonker, who's going to tell you more about the Saguaro Snakes experiment that's about to fly on OA-8 tomorrow.
Hi everyone. As Michelle said, I'm Abigail Yonker. I'm one of 5 high school members from the Arizona Saguaro Snakes group. I'm here speaking on behalf of my group as well as myself when I say that I'm greatly appreciative and extremely honored to be given the opportunity from Higher Orbits. Back in February, when I met my now group members for the first time, they were given 5 hours over a 2-day period to design a product to be tested in a microgravity environment. Given the requirements and limitations of our experiment, we started brainstorming. And with the help of our STEM teacher and the 2015 movie The Martian, we came up with the idea of plant growth in space. We proceeded to brainstorm different variables that we could test within the process of growing plants, and we came across the process called nitrogen fixation. You may be asking, well, what is nitrogen fixation? And the answer is pretty cool. Nitrogen fixation is the process in which plants that contain a bacteria that can fix nitrogen in the Earth's atmosphere and turn it into other usable compounds such as nitrate, ammonia, and nitrogen dioxide. Not only is this process extremely important to keeping the nitrogen cycle balanced, but we also found out it's a natural fertilizer. From there, instantly we were intrigued, and we thought to ourselves, well, this is a naturally occurring process. Will something happen to it? What will change if we put it in a microgravity environment? And the idea grew. We thought about testing the amount of nitrate that gets put back into the soil and compare it to the exact project that's going on down here at Earth. By doing this, we'll be able to have a constant within our experiment and see if gravity really plays a role in this nitrogen fixation process. Originally, we planned our project to be used with peanut plants, but due to the small size of the cube lab and the help of Space Tango, we altered it to using microcolors. They both are nitrogen fixed, so our outcome is unchanged. For the cube lab itself, it's wetted soil with several sprouted little clovers. There's a video later on. It looks really cool. There's all kinds of required circuitry and sensors that monitor visually plants, and as well as the amount of nitrate that's being put back into the soil. Along with all the sensors, we have a camera, which we originally didn't plan for, but when we had our FaceTime call with Space Tango, again, it looked really cool. My team and I's hope for this experiment is to eventually use these nitrogen-fixed plants to inhabit inhabitable planets at the moment. We're striving to inspire future generations to help, especially kids our age, being exposed to these great programs like Higher Orbits. I never dreamed of sending microclovers up to space to be tested for nitrogen in soil. Like, Nick's over there smiling, he does the same thing. It's absolutely amazing what we get to experience this week here on Wallops in DC, and we are all just so honored. So thank you, Higher Orbits, Thank you, NASA, and thank you, Orbital ATK.
Taking a look at what we can expect.
And we do have a quick video that can just roll as we're answering questions. We did test this all out on the ground, and so you can see what it's going to look like when the 75 microclovers start to grow. This is obviously in a 1G environment, but the students are going to be able to access this data from home. It does come down through Space Tango, but they are going to be able to log in and get it themselves.
Great, and with that, we will open it up to questions. If you have a question in the room, please raise your hand. If you're following along on NASA's social channels, use the hashtag AskNASA.
26 degrees. We think that's about as low as we're going to get as we go through the next couple of hours. As we go to L-0, expecting
Jason Ryan with Spaceflight Insider. My question is for the young lady here.
Temperature range possibly as high as 28 degrees.
How did you get started? You look. I mean, I feel old, so old looking at you. You're so young. What made you decide to get started in this? Thank you.
Actually, my high school I went to last year, my geometry teacher saw this because it was hosted at my old high school. And I had just started to get kind of interested in space, thought it was pretty cool, and I was talking to him about it. And as soon as I went to this camp, I knew. And I've been just so inspired. I want to be an aerospace engineer when I'm older. So really, it just came from the exposure at my high school. So.
Follow-up question. So when you got started in all this, did you think you'd be coming to attend a NASA launch and that you'd be working with a payload that would fly to the International Space Station?
No way. I was shocked when we went at the camp level, and then Nick and I started freaking out when we went at the higher level. We were just so honored. I never saw myself doing this. It's absolutely crazy and really cool. Thank you.
Again, if you have a question in the room, please raise your hand. I know we have one question now from Ask NASA.
Thanks. The question is, how can teachers register their class to participate in the CubeSat programs?
And so I can't speak to CubeSats. CubeSats are definitely different than Cube Labs. CubeSats actually go and they orbit the Earth. Cube Labs we work with inside the space station. For Go for Launch, they can visit us at www.higherorbits.org. We have programs all across the country, but we are looking to have programs in other locations. Look, I was a little girl who, when I was 3, fell in love with space, and I got to go to space camp, and I worked at NASA for a bunch of years, and I wanted to be able to bring space-inspired STEM events to the backyards of students who might not have otherwise realized how cool it was. I mean, now I know Abby does want to go to space camp, but originally she didn't know, and so certainly we welcome new students and new teachers.
I think we have time for one more question in the room. If you have a question, please raise your hand.
Just a question on how the experiment is run inside the ISS. Is it monitored by anyone on board, or is it all done remotely?
And so this is one of the beauties of automation and things
Copy that. Prop A, we'll go ahead and check 372.
LC, Elect 3, back on station.
And I copy that, Elect 3.
LC, this is GC on countdown 1.
Yeah, stand by, GC. And launch team LC on countdown 1. We're now at 1 hour from T0. Our next significant event will be an upload, the choice and upload for the trajectory file for today's operation. We'll be doing that in approximately 5 minutes. GC, LC, go ahead.
LC, this is GC. I just wanted to let you know that we actually have processed that waiver on the high pressure nitrogen storage. So we're actually in a green condition there.
All right, very good. And I copied the conversation. Thanks for the update, GC. And so, launch team, with that waiver, processing of that waiver, we have all agencies reporting green at this time. Again, just under 1 hour from T0, and all agencies are reporting green at this time.
LC, site control, stepping off for a minute.
Copy that, site control. And GNC1 LC on countdown 1.
LC, GNC1.
Yeah, GNC1, step 373, looking for recommended flight computer trajectory file for today's launch operation.
LC, GNC1, we would like to select trajectory file 0 for today's operation.
Okay, I copy 0. And Ops 1 LC, step 374, your go to select flight trajectory file 0.
Ops 1 copies, LC, standby. Selecting trajectory 0. Mark.
And GNC1, step 375, verify flight computer trajectory file, ID, and telemetry.
LC, GNC1, I confirm trajectory file 0 and telemetry.
Okay, copy that. We'll check 375. And Ops 1, step 376, can you verify ground to vehicle comm is nominal?
LC, ground to vehicle comm is nominal.
Okay, roger that. And prop lead, LC, countdown 1.
And go ahead, LC.
Yeah, I'll wait for your call when you have confirmation of cold helium bottles submerged.
Copy, LC. And LC, prop lead.
Go ahead, prop lead.
Cold helium bottle submerged confirmed.
Okay, copy that. We'll check step 377 complete. And launch team, we're going to go ahead and proceed into our SIGI gyro compass alignment steps here. Ops 1, step 378, verify SIGI frame 3 settings.
Copy that, LC, standby.
Flight control's back on comm.
Copy, site control.
Okay, LC, Ops 1. Control word 1 is set to 0000. Data ready button is checked. Inserted data is set to position. Position latitude is set to 37.833872. Position longitude, negative 75.487687. Position altitude, 11.11 feet. Velocity north, velocity east, and velocity down are all set to 0.0. Frame 3 settings verified.
And I copy all Ops 1. We'll go ahead and check 378. And at this time, I want to get a report of readiness to begin SIGI alignment. GNC1.
GNC1's go.
Ops 1.
Ops 1 go.
And Elect 1.
Elect 1 is go.
All right, we're ready to begin SIGI alignment. Check step 379. And Ops 1, step 380, your go to mode SIGI to GC align.
Commanding to GC line on my mark. Mark, time is 11:46:05.
And I copy that, Ops 1. We'll go ahead and check step 380. And GNC1 LC, step 381, verify SIGI telemetry.
LC, GNC1, SIGI telemetry verified.
Copy that, GNC1. Check step 381 complete.
And prop lead, I'll wait for your call on step 382.
And copy LC.
Hey, you're watching NASA TV, on the air and online every day, on this planet and beyond.
And LC prop lead on countdown.
Go ahead, prop lead.
Cold helium bottle charging has started.
Copy that, prop lead. We'll check step 382. And ORBTM LC on countdown 1.
LC ORBTM?
Yeah, ORBTM, let's go ahead and configure launch vehicle decommed to open loop. And I understand this applies to 41 and 69 only, and that we're already in open loop mode on 87.
Copy that. LC now configured for open loop telemetry.
And ORBTM, I copied that. And ORBTM, can you verify we have nominal open loop telemetry in the LCC?
Confirm nominal open loop telemetry in the LCC.
Copy that. And SEITLC countdown 1, step 384. Can you verify launch vehicle open loop telemetry being received and nominal in the RCC?
RCC open loop telemetry received and nominal.
Copy that, SEIT. We'll check 384 complete.
Happy Veterans Day and welcome to NASA Television's live coverage of the launch of Orbital ATK's commercial resupply services 8 mission to the International Space Station. The Orbital ATK Cygnus cargo vehicle with its 7,385 pounds of supplies, including dozens of science experiments, is ready to deliver its cargo on top of the Antares rocket with everything looking good for today's planned 6:37 a.m. Central Time launch from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport's Pad 0A at the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, where the sun had just showed up about 20 minutes ago, ushering in what looks to be a great day for a launch.
386, that fuel level adjustment is not required.
We have multiple teams working through today's preparations in anticipation of that launch coming up in just about 36 minutes now. There at Wallops, there's the team at the Launch Control Center, led by Orbital Launch Director Kurt Epperly.
OCCF configured to no
in Dulles, Virginia, there's the Orbital ATK Mission Control Complex, led by Cygnus Mission Director Kenneth Peak. And of course, we're here at NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston, inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room, with a team led by Flight Director Emily Nelson.
And launch team, we're currently 35 minutes from
I'm NASA TV commentator Brandy Dean, and I'm joined today by Amanda Davis, Orbital ATK's Director of Program Management at the company's Chandler, Arizona facility. Amanda's here to offer up some insight behind-the-scene knowledge on what goes into getting Cygnus and Antares ready for launch. Thanks so much for coming out to Houston, Amanda.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Amanda and I will also be taking questions from social media leading up to the launch, so if you've got one to send in, you can get it to us by using the hashtag AskNASA. We'll be taking those a little later. Here on the ground, the team's been working hard for about how long would you say, Amanda?
Well, from the day that the first circuit card assembly is started to be made and the propellant constituents are made, that's almost 2 years. But thankfully, we're on constant production, so that way it only takes a matter of months for us to put the final assembly together at Wallops and then roll out and launch.
I think we're having a little bit of trouble with the audio, so give us just a second to adjust.
I think maybe I'm back on now.
Okay, you want to say that again? About how long does it take?
Sorry about that. So, from the time that the first circuit card assemblies are made to the propellant constituents, we have just, that takes about 2 years. But thankfully, we're in constant production of those items. So when we do the final integration in Wallops, it's only a matter of a few months, and then we roll out to launch.
And your team has done this a number of times now. I think this is the 8th Cygnus mission. So is it getting to be routine? Are you pretty well got the process down?
Yes and no. So it does get easier. We learn things, and that makes the integration go by a lot faster. However, there's always new problems that come up every time, so there's always new challenges, and that's the best part of rocket science, is that there's always something new that you get to learn and discover, and problems to go fix. But it does get a little better.
That's good. Well, I know that one of the last steps, of course, is the rollout to the launch pad, which actually happened on Thursday, and I believe we have some video to show of that. And, you've been at the Wallops for previous launches, right, Amanda? Is this something that everyone gathers to watch?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of great places to watch. There's Chincoteague Island that's just across from Wallops Island, and there's a lot of great places people can watch. The best part of being live there at the launch is to feel the rumble in your chest, and you can actually feel the heat on your face as the rocket lifts off. So if anyone ever has a chance to go down there, I highly recommend going to watch a launch.
And we're seeing the rollout here. It took place on Thursday. Of course, this is sped up quite a bit. It's a pretty slow process to move a rocket.
Yeah, that's about 5 miles an hour of driving. You see there, it's just over a mile from our horizontal integration facility down to the pad. But it's quite a production. We do make sure we're monitoring Cygnus the whole time, making sure it's powered on and everything in the cargo is safe as we go out to the pad.
FSO enabled.
And TD.
TD enabled.
Copy all. We'll go ahead and check step 392 complete.
There's a lot of activity going on right now. It doesn't look like a whole lot that there are just people watching, but when we lift the vehicle, again, there's a lot of systems that we're monitoring. And after the vehicle is erected, we start to connect all the propellant lines.
The launch pad, and of course that wasn't really the end of work. It hasn't just been sitting there since it was rolled out. What goes on between then and today?
Well, there's 24/7 operations. I mean, from the moment it starts to roll out to the moment it lifts off, there is something to be done. There's, every minute is accounted for, so there's a lot of activity going on. So we connect the propellant lines, we can do leak checks on those, and then one of the biggest items is the combined systems tests, where we put the avionics of Antares together with Cygnus and the pad controls, and we make sure all of those systems work together. So that's a big box we check about a day before launch.
Great, and everything, like we said, is looking good for a launch, which is now 31 minutes away. And just this morning, the launch control teams have been at Wallop since, I think, about midnight Central Time. They had a poll for readiness for Antares to go onto external power just after 2 a.m. and another one before kicking off the loading sequencer timeline just before 3 a.m. And then there was a 20-minute hold at 4:37, 2 hours before the launch, before the countdown picked back up at the T-1 hour and 30-minute mark. And a little over an hour ago, they began loading the Antares with that propellant that you'd mentioned. And now the next big milestone coming up, I think in just a few minutes, is when we'll hit the planned 10-minute hold at 6:17 a.m. Central. And then during that hold, the control teams will conduct a poll to make sure everything's ready to proceed with the final countdown and get us through that last 10 minutes before launch. Assuming they get a go, the poll will resume at T-10 at 6:27, and things will really get going at 6:33 when the auto sequencers start for the terminal phase of the countdown has begun. And again, once again, the liftoff time is 6:37 a.m., and that is 30 minutes away now.
Yeah, avionics and stage 1 are both down right now. Motor cone and ground are active.
After liftoff, it'll take Cygnus about 9 minutes to get into space and just under 2 days to reach the International Space Station, where Expedition 53 crew is going to be waiting for it and all its cargo. You can see a timeline of its ascent here on the screen, starting with the launch at 6:37. That'll be quickly followed by main engine cutoff, and then a number of other milestones that get us actually into orbit. Do you want to run through those for us, Amanda?
Sure, the steps to orbit. So when we do the liftoff, the stage 1 will burn about 3.5 minutes, and then after stage 1 set, we coast for about a minute, and there's actually a performance benefit with that. It's also where we deploy the fairing. So Cygnus is tucked inside a fairing to protect it on ascent from all the heating from going through the atmosphere. So we deploy that fairing in the inner stage, and then stage 2 will ignite and burn for about 2.5 minutes. And then we coast again for about 2 minutes, and that's just to steady everything out before we release Cygnus and send it on its way.
All right, and everything again is looking good for that plan, 6:37 a.m. Central Time liftoff. And then it will reach its destination about 2 days later on Monday, where the, as I said, the Expedition 53 crew will be waiting for it at the space station. European Space Agency Flight Engineer Paolo Nespoli and NASA's Randy Bresnik, the station commander, are going to be the primary members responsible for grabbing onto Cygnus on Monday. But their crewmates, NASA flight engineers Joe Acaba and Mark Vandehei, as well as Russian flight engineers Alexander Misurkin and Sergei Rosansky, are all going to be glad to see its arrival as well.
LC Elect 1, FTS external power for inverters nominal.
Copy that. Elect 1, check 397 and 398 FTS. Verify FTS indicates safe. Receiving check channel and nominal agency.
Speaking of the crew, it's appropriate to note that today, that 5 of them have served in the military of their countries, including all 3 of the NASA astronauts on board. Randy Bresnik served in the U.S. Marine Corps, Joe Acaba in the Marine Corps Reserves, and Mark Vandehei in the Army. So they were eager to take some time out of their schedules this past week to send down a special message in honor of the veterans that have served in the United States.
Greetings from the International Space Station. I'm retired Marine Corps Colonel and Space Station Commander Randy Bresnik of NASA, along with my NASA crewmates, retired Army Colonel Mark Vandehei, and former Marine Corps Reservist Joe Acaba. It's our pleasure, as members of the Armed Services, to salute all veterans on this Veterans Day. NASA's connection to the military dates back to the agency's founding, when so many of our early astronauts came from our armed services. Today, many of our colleagues throughout NASA are still current or former members of the military.
Some of our colleagues pay the ultimate price in the name of space exploration. But as we orbit the Earth today, our thoughts and devotion is to all veterans, but especially those service members who gave their lives to defend our great nation and the freedom we cherish. As you celebrate Veterans Day, join me in saluting a veteran. Tell them how grateful you are for their service. All veterans are a special breed. They understand what sacrifice means and how it allows us to enjoy our democracy, which gives us the ability to continue to learn and to explore.
In closing, from all of us here on the International Space Station to all veterans, we cannot say thank you enough for your service and sacrifice on behalf of our nation. You will never be forgotten.
And Ops 1 LC on countdown step 407. We go to reset charge amps.
LC Ops 1, charge amps reset.
And elect 1, verify charge amp signals.
And we just want to add our thank you to all the veterans out there watching today. We appreciate all of your service.
Signals reset and return to flight mode.
And copy that. We'll check 407 and 408. Prop 2 LC, countdown 1.
Prop 2 on countdown 1.
Your go for step 409.
And actually, the Cygnus launching today in just 25 minutes now is named after another veteran and former astronaut, Gene Cernan. Cernan, who died in January, was selected as an astronaut in 1963 and made 3 trips to space. His first was on Gemini 9 in 1966 when he became the second American to perform a spacewalk. He returned in 1969 for Apollo 10, which was the final mission to test systems and capabilities for the moon landing on Apollo 11, just 2 months later. And he made his own moon landing in 1972 on Apollo 17, the final Apollo mission. He was the last man to walk on the moon and made the famous remark that we leave as we came, and God willing we shall return with peace and hope for all mankind.
Prop 2, you can resume HSS ASC.
HSS ASC resumed.
And Prop 2, you can return OCCS to automatic control mode.
OCCS is in auto control mode.
Copy all. We'll check steps 409 through 413. And GNC1 LC, countdown 1, step 414, provide status of upper level winds.
LC GNC1 GNC1 upper level winds are go.
Copy that. GNC1, check step 414 complete. Ops 1, this is LC on countdown 1, step 415. Your go to enable the ME1 and ME2.
We're now 24 minutes away from today's 6:37 a.m. launch. And Amanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Antares and Cygnus and what we can expect on its climb to orbit?
Okay, first I'll talk about Cygnus. You can see it there with its service module and the pressurized cargo module. This is the 5th flight of the enhanced Cygnus, which extended that pressurized cargo module. We have about 13,000 pounds of mass, or 3 large SUVs that take up all of Cygnus and its cargo. We have about 1,700 pounds of propellant, which are used to maneuver up to the space station, and then after all the experimentation, the unloading and loading back up of trash into Cygnus, then it takes up about 2 weeks to deorbit, and so that's what that propellant is used for. We have about 950 cubic feet of volume, and the height is about 6.4 meters, or about the height of a giraffe. Then we have the Antares, which is about 13 feet in diameter and 140 feet tall. That's the same as a 14-story building, so when it's out there on the pad and you're standing under it, it's quite amazing to see. The total liftoff mass, so that's with all the propellant loaded, is about 660,000 pounds. You can see Cygnus tucked in there in the top under the fairing. Then we have the second stage motor under it, the Castor 30XL, which is made up in Utah. And our first stage, which is a liquid oxygen kerosene fueled, that has 2 RD-181 engines that power it. And here we go over an overview of the OA-8 mission that Cygnus will be launching on the Antares 230 config, the second launch of that configuration with an enhanced first stage. We have about 7,400 pounds of cargo, and then on the way down up to 7,400 pounds of garbage. And one can imagine if you're on the space station, you really want your garbage taken out. So after the astronauts take the cargo that we send up to them, they load it back up with trash, and it descends and burns up upon re-entry. And we're launching today from Virginia Space's Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport, which has a very cute acronym of MARS, and that's from Pad 0A. So our mission will be up to 90 days, where Cygnus will hang out at the space station and have its cargo unloaded. There's also some experiments that are going to happen within Cygnus this time, and then finally fill up with trash and come back down.
Thanks, Amanda. That's a great overview. And we are coming up now on the 10-minute hold, which starts at L-18 or 6:17 a.m. Central Time. And Amanda, could you tell us a little bit about what goes on during this hold and why we build it into the timeline?
Yes, so we only have a 5-minute window today. So if you were thinking there might be a delay and you might miss it, well, it's going to be 37 minutes from the hour or plus 5 minutes, and that's all. And the reason we do that is so that we can optimize the performance of the vehicle and as much cargo as we can get into Cygnus and take the least amount of time to get up to the space station. So if anyone's looked up in the night sky, you can see that the space station going overhead. So we try to make sure that we time it just right to get to the space station. So because of the only 5 minutes that you have to lift off, we put this hold in there as a little bit of contingency. We have a lot of operations to do with propellant loading and avionics last-minute testing and power on that we leave ourselves just a little bit of contingency. So thankfully here we are at the hold, and we'll be ready to go right within our window.
Great. And you've been on the flight control team before, right?
I have. It's very exciting. The nerves just keep building and building the closer you get to this launch. So it's, you kind of wake up and you get started, and you get your roll call, and today the team had to start really early, about 1 a.m., to get this launch at 7:37 on their time. So it's been a long day already, and they're probably getting really nervous about now, but things are sounding really good, and we're ready for liftoff.
What are some of the duties that they have or that you had when you were on the flight control team?
So there's a lot of, everyone has a different role that's there today. So we're monitoring temperatures and pressures, avionics health. So the vehicle, both Antares and Cygnus use batteries, and so we do last minute charges of those and make sure everything's good. And so one of the last minute things they're doing now is transferring the vehicle from external power from the ground to the internal power. And once you start doing that and the final arming, that's when the nerves really get going. So we have a lot of electrical engineers that are doing a lot of these functions. We also have mechanical engineers that look at temperatures and pressures, and so there's a lot of folks that are there and monitoring the vehicle, make sure everything's ready.
And they'll be getting into that go, no-go poll, right, for kind of the final phase of countdown and launch. That's got to be an exciting time.
That is. There is actually a list of polls that happen. We do that before we start propellant loading to make sure that when we load the liquid oxygen that we are ready to go forward with flight. So there's a lot of go, no-go polls, but the last one's really the exciting one where you want to hear everything from the range. So the range is making sure that the weather's good and we're ready to go there. We have our chief engineer that's making sure that all the engineering functions, that everyone is reporting green and nominal.
All right, and that should be coming up in just a few minutes now, so we'll be listening in on that pretty soon.
And FSO copies, comment, test, and work.
LC, FTS on countdown 1.
Go ahead, FTS.
Yeah, AGCs on receiver A are dipping a little lower. It's getting pretty noisy. I'd like to do a comet test if that's okay with you.
Yep, go ahead and press.
Copy, thanks.
And FSO copies, comment, test, and work.
Ops 1 back on station.
Copy, Ops 1.
Just a reminder that you can send us in your questions on social media today using the hashtag AskNASA, and we have one that's already come in from Holly Gully on Twitter. She asks, is any part of this vehicle reusable?
No, the Antares actually is not reusable. That is something that we looked at. It's a considerable cost to go and retrieve a first or second stage back. And in fact, Cygnus is on purpose not reusable. It is made to burn up upon reentry. That way we dispose of all the trash from the space station.
Makes sense. Thanks. Just a reminder, you can send in your own questions using that hashtag AskNASA.
And CMDLC, countdown 1.
Now 16 minutes away from today's 6:37 a.m. launch of Antares, again with the Orbital ATK Cygnus spacecraft on top, and everything is still looking good for its on-time launch. Amanda mentioned earlier that Cygnus is carrying more than 7,000 pounds of cargo up to the space station, and included in that is computer hardware, spacewalking hardware, food, new cameras for the space station, and supplies needed for dozens of experiments. Several of those experiments are on board CubeSats that Cygnus will launch after it departs the space station. CubeSats are nanosatellites that usually weigh just a few pounds and provide opportunities for small experiments to fly on rockets as auxiliary payloads. One experiment flying today inside a CubeSat on board Cygnus is the E-coli antimicrobial satellite, which is going to investigate the effects of microgravity on the antibiotic resistance of E. coli, which is responsible for urinary tract infections here on Earth. Different types of E. coli will be exposed to different antibiotic concentrations and then examined for viability using a dye that reveals metabolic activity. Living in microgravity can weaken the human immune system, so antibiotic-resistant diseases are a potential danger for astronauts. This experiment could help determine the correct antibiotic doses to protect astronauts. And for those of us here on Earth, it'll give us a better understanding of how bacteria responds to stress and how that impacts their antibiotic resistance, which could help for future antibiotic design. The Orbital Communications and Sensor Demonstration is another CubeSat-based experiment launching on Cygnus today. That one is looking at two cross-cutting capabilities that could help future space missions versus high-speed optical data transmission, and then also small spacecraft proximity operations. The satellites for the experiment will use a laser communication system hard-mounted to the satellite itself that will be pointed by controlling the satellite's orientation, which makes it more compact than anything previously flown in space. The satellite's orientation will be controlled by star trackers that measure the position of stars within 0.05 degrees. That's 20 times more precise than anything previously demonstrated in satellites of this size. That'll provide valuable research into the need for low-cost sensors that small spacecraft can use to assist in maneuvering and operating safely in close proximity to other spacecraft or objects in space.
And ops to this LC on countdown 1.
Have it on.
LC, go ahead.
You go for 423, initiate evacuation of fuel cavities.
Ops to copy. Evacuation started, time 12:24:30.
Yeah, copy that, ops 2.
One more CubeSat experiment on board Cygnus today is the integrated solar array and reflect array antenna experiment, which will demonstrate an antenna that will increase downlink data rates from the previous baseline of 6.9 kilobytes per second to more than 100 megabytes per second. That increase would allow CubeSats and other small satellites to perform missions that were previously only possible on larger and more costly satellites.
12:24:30.
And for an example of an experiment that will be performed inside the space station, there's also the biological nitrogen fixation and microgravity experiment. That one looks at how space station's microgravity affects the nitrogen fixation process. Nitrogen fixation is a natural fertilizer that's necessary for most types of plant growth, including the microclover, which will be used for this experiment. The particular bacteria develops a symbiotic relationship with the microclover to convert nitrogen into the atmosphere into organic compounds in the plant's roots. But processes that work on Earth are often changed without gravity on the space station, so this experiment will evaluate how it works in space. It could help us learn more about how to best cultivate plants for food in future long-term missions.
With final countdown. GSO, OA.
Remembering J.R. Thompson and Gene Cernan today, whose memories and legacies
and GSO, LC, countdown 1.
Space exploration.
GSO.
OA is go.
Yeah, step 425, poll to proceed with final countdown.
GSO, go.
GSO is go. RSO?
RSO is go.
TD?
TD is go.
MES1?
MES is go.
GCE?
GCE is go.
ACE?
ACE is go.
Mars?
Mars is go.
CMD?
CMD is go.
LD?
LD is go.
OA?
The range is green.
Remembering J.R. Thompson and Gene Cernan today, whose memories and legacies will live on for their great contributions to space exploration. OA is go.
Copy that. OA is go. Launch team is go to proceed with final countdown at T minus 10 minutes.
Go safety.
And MES1, I'll
Okay,
wait for
that's
your
cleared
call
with the
on
range
step
and FAA.
427.
LC, you have step 427. Vacuum is verified.
Copy that. We'll check step 427.
Just heard there a go, no go poll that gets us into the final preparations for Cygnus's launch day, coming up at 6:37, just 10 minutes away now. For those just joining via Facebook Live, welcome to the live coverage of the Orbital ATK Commercial Resupply Services 8 mission to launch the space station. Cygnus cargo vehicle sitting on top of the Antares rocket on Launch Pad 0A at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport at Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. And everything is looking good for that planned 6:37 a.m. Central launch coming up here in just 10 minutes.
Copy. Ops 1, elect 1, verify ACS VDMs are enabled and nominal.
LC elect 1, ACS VDMs enable, voltage nominal.
Roger that, elect 1. Ops 1, you go to activate arm enable.
LC Ops 1, arm enable, key rotated, indicator illuminated.
And Ops 1, you go to arm. And launch team countdown has resumed. Check step 426. Ops 1, you go to enable stage 1 controller and ACS VDM. Copy that. Ops
Now
2,
out of that last 10-minute hold and getting into the final countdown, at 6:37, Antares will lift off and begin making a 9-minute and 6-second climb to orbit before separating from Cygnus, which will then go on to make its way to the International Space Station with about 7,400 pounds of cargo to deliver, including supplies for dozens of science experiments.
And Ops 1, you go to ARM, Stage 1 Controller, ODM.
LC Ops 1, Stage 1 Controller, ODM, armed.
Copy that. Ops 2, Step 432, set Stage 1 Controller, EPV rest.
Yeah, elect 1's on. Do you see the bus
LC Ops 2, Stage 1 Controller, VRF set.
Ops 2. And Ops 2, initialize ground ordnance power supplies.
LC recommend.
Ground ordnance power supplies initialized.
Roger that. Ops 2, elect 1. Verify ground ordnance power supplies initialized nominal. And elect 1, LC, countdown 1.
Yeah, elect 1's on. Do you see the bus voltage? I don't see the bus voltage.
Ops 2.
Did I hit no again?
LC recommend we resend that command.
Go, Ops 2.
Command sent.
Okay, LC elect 1, ground ordnance power supplies nominal.
Copy that. Check 434. Site control, I'll wait for your confirmation that we have GN2 conditioning started.
Site control copy.
MES1, can you confirm engines ready for fuel circuit priming?
Engines are ready for priming.
Copy that. Ops 2.
Just under 8 minutes away now from today's launch, and you're looking at the Orbital ATK Mission Control in Dulles, Virginia, where everything is still going well for that 6:37 a.m. liftoff.
And Ops 2, we're going to go ahead and press terminate engine evacuation.
Ops 2 copies.
And there is the Antares rocket on the pad at Wallops in Virginia. Journey to space will take Cygnus about 2 days to get to the space station after making its way to orbit, and the Expedition 53 team is eagerly awaiting it. Commander Randy Bresnik and Flight Engineer Paolo Nespoli will be on hand to use the space station's robotic arm to grab onto it at about 4:40 a.m. Central Time on Monday.
VGT open time 12:30:10.
Copy that. And prop lead, I'll wait for your call when we have OCCS activation of VTSO. MES-1, I'll wait for your call when you have engine priming status.
MES copies.
LC to prop lead, VTSO activation verified.
Copy, check 440.
Once arriving at the space station, Cygnus will be sticking around until December 4th, when the crew will use the robotic arm again to unberth it from the Unity node, where it's going to be installed, and then send it on its way. But in those 5 weeks, there will be a flurry of activity to unload its 7,400 pounds of supplies and hardware that it's delivering. Again, the team here on the ground completed their no-go poll just a few minutes ago, checking with each discipline and control team to make sure all the bases are covered and everything is ready and in place for 6:37 a.m. Central Time liftoff, just a little over 5 minutes from now.
VRG activated.
Copy, Ops 2 and Ops 2. Your go to close FPVs.
We have Amanda Davis here with us from the ATK from the ATK team. Amanda, what's left to do in these last few minutes?
So right now we're listening to everyone do the final power checks and final arming. So that's where I know that we're really getting ready to go, and I can hear them doing the final arming of the vehicle. At this point, we still have people that are literally pushing the buttons to command the vehicle, but about 3 minutes out, that's when it goes over to the auto sequence, and the vehicle has its own flight computer, and that takes over and commands the vehicle for the last couple minutes before we finally take off and into flight.
Okay, so everything's looking good so far. Again, counting down to 6:37 a.m. Central Time, when Antares is going to be launching from Wallops in Virginia, heading to the International Space Station with the Cygnus cargo vehicle on top of it.
FTS on B-loop, open and green.
FTS, report FCLU status. FTS, LC, countdown 1.
FTLU and FTS receiver indications are nominal.
Copy, Ops 1, your go to send all arm command.
All arms sent.
Elect 1, report SNAs and ODM status.
LC Elect 1, SNAs, ODMs, all armed.
NASA TV, report range status.
Range is green.
Copy, range green. GNC 1, verify ready for nav mode.
LC GNC 1, SIGI ready for nav.
Copy that. Ops 2, your go to mode SIGI to navigate.
Copy that, LC. SIGI nav.
And GNC 1, report SIGI status.
LC GNC 1, SIGI nav mode nominal.
Copy that. We'll check all steps through 456. And we'll have phase 3 dynamic limits setting at T-minus 3 minutes.
LC Elect 1, verified. Mission time set to T-minus 180 at T-minus 310.
Copy, Elect 1.
Now 3 minutes away from today's 6:37 a.m. Central Time launch. This point will be going into the terminal countdown, and any red flags that crop up between now and launch will stop the countdown. But at the moment, everything is looking good. Send Cygnus and its 7,400 pounds of cargo off to the space station on time.
And Core 1, 463. LC, countdown 1.
LC, this is stage 1, core 1 loss telemetry. I can confirm VTSOU is open.
EHS charging is nominal.
Copy that. Copy all. EHS charging nominal. And we'll have T-minus 2 minutes on my mark. Mark.
2 minutes now to go into liftoff, and everything continuing to proceed as planned.
Copy. Speed test initiated. And we'll be at T-minus 1 minute 30 seconds on my mark. Mark.
Oxidizer prepressurization is starting.
Copy. We got preliminary ox tank press started.
Negative, negative. Go ahead. LC, we are red. We have an aircraft in the hazard area.
Copy that. Abort, abort, abort. This is LC on countdown net. Abort, abort, abort. Proceed to the abort safing checklist.
LC Ops 1 launch enable button removed.
As you're hearing the teams on the ground talk about they noticed an aircraft in the area, so have had to abort, but they do have a 5-minute window, so we'll see if they're able to turn it around in time for liftoff just a little later than planned.
And launch team LC, proceed to page 156, abort safing operations. Step Alpha 2, prop lead.
And LC Alpha 2 not required.
Copy that. Alpha 2 not required. And prop lead, step Alpha 3.
Alpha 3 not required.
And I copy that. Ops 1, you go for step Alpha 4, disable local launch enable button at the failsafe panel and verify local indicator is extinguished.
Launch enable removed, verify local and global buttons off.
Copy that. Ops 1 and GSO, disable local launch enable button at failsafe panel.
And with that aircraft moving into the area, the team here on the ground is deciding to scrub the launch for the day. We'll listen in as they work through their steps to back out of the preparations for launch and hold on to get plans together for try again.
Go to deactivate arm enable at the failsafe panel.
Arm enable deactivated, no longer illuminated.
And I copy that. Ops 1 and Ops 1 step Alpha 8, safe vehicle SNAs and vehicle and ground ODMs and verify ODM safe.
Everything else leading up to today's planned 6:37 a.m. launch was going well, except for that final call to scrub the launch due to an aircraft in the area just before the countdown got down to 0.
SNA indicator is safe and red. FTSA indicator safe and red. FTSB indicator safe and red. Pressing the all ODM safe button. Can now verify FC ODMs are safe. Stage 1 ordnance/EPV ODMs safe. Ground ODMs safe.
And I copy all Ops 1. We'll check Alpha 8 complete. And elect 1, step Alpha 9, verify vehicle ODMs indicate safe. And verify ORA Stage 2 ignition SNA safe indication and telemetry.
LC elect 1, vehicle ODMs verified safe. Stage 2 ignition SNA safe indication and FTSA. And
so Amanda, what are the teams on the ground doing now that we do have that scrub declared for today?
Alpha 10, Alpha 11. Site control, step Alpha 12, disarm tail, rapid.
So right now they're doing detanking. So that is basically taking the liquid propellants that we've loaded onto the vehicle and putting them back into the tanks on the ground. This way we will be able to turn around for tomorrow and do the fueling again so we can conserve those fuels. So right now they're doing that. Afterwards they'll also be selectively shutting down the electrical systems and making sure that the batteries are fully charged for tomorrow. So that we do have procedures for this. We know that this can happen. We have had aircraft or sea vessels in an area which are not allowed during flight. So unfortunately that is something that has occurred today. We do our best to try to clear the area. Wallops Flight Facility does have the ability to monitor and let folks know where they cannot be during launch day. Unfortunately, we do get occasional violations of that, like today.
And I know that's hard for the team on the ground. You mentioned earlier they've been on console for about 8 hours, and we're probably on the edge of their seats waiting for liftoff, just like we were.
I'd like MES's confirmation, but I believe that step's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to go back and get some sleep because they're going to have to get up about 1 a.m. again tomorrow. So hopefully everyone will be able to wind down after these activities. We do have a couple shifts of folks that will be out there getting the pad ready for the next day. So we do plan for these events. I just hope that our crew can get some good rest and be ready for tomorrow.
Me too.
Repeat the step, please.
Yeah, step Alpha 13. This is on page 159 of abort safing operations.
Copy, LC. Not required.
Okay, roger that. And site control, what status on Alpha 14?
It's in work. I had to go to CCT. My screen's down. It's in work.
Okay, copy, site control.
And LC site control. ECU core 1 flow rate is 1158.
Yeah, site control, standby 1. And GSO, can I get you on engineering 1?
Once again, the teams are on the ground are working through backing out of procedures that were getting ready for today's planned launch at 6:37 a.m. Central Time, but that, of course, was scrubbed due to a last-minute aircraft moving into the area. So they are turning things around for another attempt tomorrow. We'll be here on NASA TV to cover that beginning at 5:45 a.m. Central Time, and the launch would actually occur at 6:14 a.m. That would get the Cygnus in orbit and en route for a Tuesday arrival at the International Space Station. Capture would be set to, coverage of capture will begin at 3:45 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday. So for with that information, we'll leave you and hope to see you back again tomorrow for another try at launching the Cygnus mission. And that, again, coverage will be starting at 5:45 a.m. Central Time, 6:45 a.m. Eastern, for a launch at 6:14 a.m. Central. Thanks so much, and this is Mission Control Houston.